Well, if you guessed that we're in the South, you're absolutely right. We're in Bristol, which is the border between Virginia and Tennessee, and is touted as a good place to live. But it's also a good place to watch trains. The center of this train watching area is actually the train station, which is built on the Virginia side but has a lot of history. And when I'm looking at trains, yes, I like the big iron and the high horsepower, but the history is also fascinating. Let's take a look at the history here in Bristol. Well, this is a very nicely restored station. They did a very nice job on this, and I don't know how much money they spent, but isn't it a shame that more stations don't get saved like this? So it's an event center now, and something the city can really be proud of. Well, we'll get to that big freight train here in a minute, but I got a question for you. What if we went back 172 years? Well, in 1850, the rail was being laid here, and the first railroad was the Virginia and Tennessee Railroad. It was completed in 1856, and that's when the first passenger train stopped here, and that's the beginning of the passenger era. By 1958, the predecessor to the Southern Railroad had built on the other side of the street, which is Tennessee, all the way to Knoxville. Well, if you know American history, that's almost when the Civil War began. And the Civil War was really called the First Railroad War because the railroads were so critical for transportation of not only soldiers, but copper, lead, salt. And that's why this line right here became so important, because it was the link between Chattanooga and Richmond. Well, the war years brought a lot of change, and by 1870, this route was now called the Atlantic, Mississippi, and Ohio. In 1873, big financial panic changed a lot of things, and a lot of things for railroad. Well, that's when the Atlantic, Mississippi, and Ohio went into bankruptcy, and by 1881, they had lost control of the railroad. Well, it was bought by Northern Interest and renamed Norfolk and Western. That was in 1881. Well, if we move forward a little bit, in 1903, this station was completed, and it has significance because it's the last of the N&W designed stations from that era. Well, remember, 1880 was the beginning of the Norfolk Western. Well, 100 years later to the year, the merger with the Southern happened. So 1880, they were combined, and yes, this whole line is Norfolk Southern today, both sides of the street. Well, while we wait for that train to come by, let's look around a little bit, chat with a new rail friend, and get a good spot to watch the freight train head south from the north to the south. Well, I'm here in Bristol with Damon, and like me, he's waiting on the train to come by, although he did just see one go north, said it had 2 engines and a distributed power in the middle. So what's your favorite thing? What do you watch for, Damon?
The tankers.
Tankers? I've never heard that. Why? Do you know what's in them?
Because I just like the way they look.
Yeah, like a big root beer barrel on a flat car. But I don't think any of them have root beer. That'd be nice.
Hey!
There's the crew. So Damon spotted the crew members coming on.
Yep.
That's a good sign for us. That means this thing's about ready to roll. But you know, railroading, it still could be a half hour. For you guys that are really, really good at that, identifying the caboose, 555-647 is marked NS now. NS 555-647. Look at the Conrail car beside it. That's kind of neat. Always love seeing the old Conrail logo. So this is 2022, but doesn't that shot look like it could have been from years and years ago? Old Penn Central car and that little shanty. Some nice artifacts are still around, but many of the old buildings have been torn down and they're gone, and we miss them. I like this brick terminal building. Bristol. Notice the new coupler knuckles on the porch there. For you guys that model, that would be a interesting little detail. So after recrewing and checking all the brake lines, airlines, this is ready to roll past the Bristol Station. Not been used by Amtrak for a long time for passenger, but well preserved and a great event center. Got a couple rail fans here, cameras, scanners. It's a good hobby, isn't it? Good profession for many of us. There's some colorful graffiti. What do you think? Distributed power? I don't know. Definitely what you'd call mixed freight. Some boxcars, some gondolas, some containers, some coal cars, tank cars. I see a lumber car coming. Oh, that's funny. That's an old coal tub with ties in it, railroad ties. Those are probably on the way to a plant where they burn them for fuel power generation. Well, this is interesting. I don't know that we're going to have distributed power, but I think we're going to have power on the end. Those of you that are local to here, do you know, do they need that for a pusher? Probably the most unusual car of all. Maybe just a coil car, but a different kind of lid than you normally see. Brand new car, although it's already graffitied. One of 22, so that car is about 5 months old. Oh, those are untreated ties. Okay, treat those and bring them back to the ETR. Thank you. A refrigerated car. And on the back, he's definitely pushing. Well, like he's wrapping this up, this might be a wrap up to Bristol. Well, I did say that the train leaving Bristol, Virginia to Bristol, Tennessee was from the north to the south, and I meant geographically. Both states were in the South in the Civil War, but that's where the Northern Railroad The Norfolk and Western met the Southern Railroad, the Southern Railway, and became Norfolk Southern. Now you know the rest of the story.